Why, hello, and welcome to the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. And yes, this is the first video I've filmed with the new appearance. The beard is gone, and in its place is the landslide winner in my wildfire relief fundraiser poll that I ran last month, the Hulk Hogan stash. It's not, bright white like Hogan's mustache is now. This is about as light as I could get it before I said, you know what, my face hurts too much from all the bleaching. I'm going to tap out, and this is pretty much where I'm going to settle for. I like how it turned out. This is a brand new look for me. It takes a lot of getting used to after having the full beard for as long as I did. Thank you all so much who donated to that fundraiser poll, by the way. Made your voice heard. And you know what, as far as maybe get a different facial hairstyle, I guess we'll do better luck next year. Raw begins this week with the champ, Randy Orton, making his way to the ring. He reiterates that he is the best of the best and better than everyone in the back/locker room. He actually corrects himself mid-sentence because apparently the back is a no-no term these days in the company. He says he's not the legend killer anymore, he's just the legend. And he says that he's ready to take on any of his many challengers for the championship when suddenly Alexa Bliss appears and she gets in the ring and she's wearing a pair of gloves that say play and pain on them. Kind of a spin on Bray Wyatt's hurt and heel gloves that he's been wearing ever since The Fiend debuted. So she shows the pain glove. She says that he is here. We get the Fiend lights and everything, but it's kind of a swerve because out comes Drew McIntyre, who hits the Claymore at Orton and basically tells him he's going to make Orton's life a living hell until he gets that rematch for the championship. Then out come Miz and Morrison through the crowd of the Thunderdome, and it looks like Miz is about to cash in his Money in the Bank contract, seconds away from the bell ringing, but Drew gets back in the ring and beats up Miz and Morrison and runs them off. So that's where the segment ends there. Basically did a pretty good job reinforcing the hype package we just saw at the top of the show where, Orton's got three different challengers he's dealing with now. Drew McIntyre, Bray Wyatt, and now The Miz. So then after the break, we see The Miz and Morrison challenge Drew to a 2-on-1 handicap match later in the night. That will be the main event. Well, someone cut Vince Russo a royalty check, bro, because it's time for a guitar on a pole match as Elias takes on Jeff Hardy. Before the match, though, Elias talks about how he basically thinks the reason Jeff allegedly hit him with a car all those months ago was because that Elias's career surpassed Jeff's. He starts to play an acoustic version of one of the songs on his album when Jeff interrupts with his intro. They're both fighting to climb the pole from the beginning here. Elias at one point throws a stool at Jeff from the outside, which I thought was pretty funny. Match ends when Jeff hits the twist of fate, grabs the guitar, does a diving guitar attack from the top rope, but it doesn't break when it hits Elias's back. So Jeff pins and wins, then shatters the guitar as he hits the pole with it. So something tells me it was maybe not one of those gimmick guitars that we see so much with Elias. The match didn't do much for me here. Is the angle over? Probably not, but it's a pole match, so yay! Survivor Series partners are opponents on this evening as Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defend the women's tag titles against Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. And at the beginning of the match, the fifth member of their team at Survivor Series, Lana, shows up and from the beginning just starts causing shit for the champions and tries to interfere, particularly bugging Shayna Baszler. In fact, at one point almost cost them the match, but ultimately Dana taps out to the Kirifuda clutch. Then later on, backstage, you see Nia Jax being interviewed and saying, she's hopping mad about Lana interfering in their match, and she's basically giving her a chance to either leave the Survivor Series team or she's going to end Lana's career. So they'll have a match a little bit later. Backstage, Randy Orton's interviewed and he's asked, does he think it will be difficult to hold on to his championship? He focuses his answer particularly on McIntyre here and saying he will remind Drew how easy it is for the hunter to become the hunted. Then we see R-Truth in the ring to take on Bobby Lashley, but silly R-Truth thinks he's wrestling Bobby Boucher, the water boy, another, just that grand tradition of timely film references in 2020 continues here in WWE. Truth says there's no need for violence and even offers to lay down for Lashley, but Bob has none of it and ultimately beats Truth pretty handily with the Hurt Lock. He puts it on him again after the bell rings. Drew Gulak comes in and he goes for a pin, but then Lashley just picks up Drew Goo, puts him in the Hurt Lock himself, and then just drops him onto R-Truth. And so Drew Goo has pinned Truth and has become the new 24/7 champion, although both unconscious though. As far as the segment itself goes, I think, Truth is a great comedy wrestler. We know that. He was very entertaining in this moment here. And we find out a little bit more what's going to happen with the Hurt Business later in this night, but I'm wondering, what's really loaded up for Lashley right now? After what's the post-Survivor Series landscape going to look like for the U.S. Championship? Right now, they have a bit of wiggle room to not really address that immediately, but I think it'd be good to plant the seeds for that sometime sometime in the next couple weeks. Backstage, the Lucha House Party get ready to go and try and claim the 24/7 title for themselves, but they bump into AJ Styles' bodyguard, That Man. Then, That Man and AJ Styles make their way to the ring. Styles cuts a promo saying, as good as SmackDown's team is going to be at Survivor Series, Raw's is going to be better because they have AJ Styles. His intangibles have intangibles, he says. He declares himself the team captain, then brings out his teammates, Sheamus and Keith Lee, neither of whom agree that he is the team captain. Then Braun Strowman shows up and says he wants to be on the team for Survivor Series. Keith says he needs to qualify like the rest of them did, and then Strowman lays out his credentials as to why he should be on the team. He says he's been on as many as 12 winning Survivor Series teams, and he beat Keith clean a couple weeks ago, neither of which are true. Finally, Adam Pearce shows up, and AJ pitches to him a match with the other three guys, Sheamus, Keith Lee, and Strowman, and if Strowman wins, he will qualify for the team. Well, what's in it for Sheamus and Keith Lee then? So the match begins. AJ is on commentary and cannot stop talking about how he doesn't want these guys to get hurt. Well, why did you even bring up the possibility of this match then? At one point early on, Keith with a big flipping dive to the outside, but hit the back of his neck, lands right on the corner of the apron. It's such a scary looking bump. If that happened a few inches either direction, we might be having a very different conversation right now about Keith Lee. He seems to be okay because he kept on going with the match, but that was a really scary fall there. It's one of my favorite kinds of matches here. A big boy bash. Three just big dudes beating the hell out of each other. Strowman is knocked out with a stare shot from the other two guys, but he comes back and tackles them through the barricade. We get a big Tower of Doom spot with all three guys, and the ring doesn't break, yet we saw that happen with Strowman and The Fiend by themselves a couple of months ago. I call shenanigans. Anyway, Strowman hits Sheamus with a running power slam. To win the match, he will advance and join the Survivor Series team. There's one spot to go. If you like big guys beating the hell out of each other, then this is the match for you. Then after the match, AJ congratulates Braun, tries to make peace with everyone here. He makes Keith shake hands with Strowman. So that happens. Then he wants Sheamus to do it, but Sheamus is hesitant. Finally, he hugs Strowman, but psych, hits a brogue kick. Then Keith Lee takes out Sheamus, and AJ ejects Keith Lee. And AJ's hilarious here as he's watching his team possibly crumble around him. He's like, why are we fighting? No, why? He's pretty hilarious here. Except for Keith Lee's scary fall on the outside, with the flipping dive and everything. I pretty much enjoyed this segment here. Like I said, I like the match. I like AJ, trying to hold this team together as the, self-proclaimed captain. And, where we're going to go with this, the next couple weeks, who's to say, but I do like the direction so far. Angel Garza's backstage, and he appears to be sending a message to a specific person. You can't really tell who it is, but he says he offers a rose. He points at the camera. If they're turning Angel Garza into the Continental from SNL, that would be amazing. Elsewhere backstage, Drew McIntyre cuts a promo where he says he's going to be Orton's guardian angel, so to speak, making sure that he and only he will get the first shot at the championship at some point. He also kind of dismisses The Miz and Morrison, saying it's fun to beat up The Miz. He'll be doing it again tonight. It's time for a new Firefly Fun House. And by the way, I do like they've added a new kind of cartoon Alexa to stand next to the cartoon Bray in those lower thirds to kind of hype up the segment. In this episode here, Abby the Witch has got a mouth on her, and they've also introduced the swear jar. So that's a new concept. One of the many new gimmicks they just add every week to the Firefly Funhouse, it seems. Bray has flashbacks when Randy Orton burned down the compound several years ago and says that he never forgets. Then the segment ends with Alexa showing off a new trick where she drools out strawberry jam, and then Bray goes, holy shit, at the end. That's also censored. So that was something. It's time for Lana and Nia Jax to settle their differences. We had a couple of pre-match promos here, one from Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans where they don't give very much credence to Lana's chances here. Again, why would you break up the Iconics just to put Peyton Royce in a much less interesting team? Then we get a pre-match promo from Lana as well where she says she will turn the tables on Nia Jax, but it's pretty much a big stretched out squash match. The whole thing is Nia just beating up Lana and degrading her, but Lana refuses to quit. Finally, she hits the Samoan drop on her in the ring, and then afterward, through the announce table again, the sins of Miro. For 7 weeks now, 7 out of the last 8 weeks, this has happened. It's like poor Lana is all I could think of. What's the point of all these Samoan drops to the table? It was kind of like it was curious at first that Nia Jax kept doing that, and then it was getting funny, and then with any joke that you repeat too much, the diminishing returns happen and it's not funny anymore. What is the payoff to this? Because she's trying to make Lana quit. Okay, something tells me that's not going to happen, so how that's going to play into the match itself. But what is the payoff here? Do we expect Lana to turn a corner and suddenly stop being a doormat in the future? Like, is she going to slam Nia to the table? What is the payoff? It's just kind of sad now. It's time for the VIP lounge. The Hurt Business are in the ring. Bobby Lashley starts off with some strong words towards Sami Zayn, saying he'll put him to sleep at Survivor Series in their champion versus champion match. MVP then says it's time for them to collect payment on taking care of the retribution problem in the locker room and whatnot in the form of the Raw Tag Team Championships. The New Day interrupt and they make a joke about Lashley's age, Kofi putting over his title history over Bob Lashley's. There's a lot of back and forth in this thing between MVP and Xavier and Kofi. You know, it's very emblematic of their gimmicks, where MVP is very no nonsense. You know, we're a business, we are very sophisticated, you are clowns, and Kofi and Xavier responding with more jokes, but jokes with a little bit of truth in them as well. You know, I think that both sides did very well in this promo off. I think it was probably, you know, better, probably the best, some of the best, like, for the whole group, I'd say, probably the best promo work for the Hurt Business I've seen in a while. Then it's time for the non-title match between the New Day and Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin of the Hurt Business. It's a pretty good match here, and it ends when Shelton hits the pay dirt on Xavier, allowing Cedric to pin and to win. So setting up a potential, you know, future feud down the line with these two teams. Will they hold this off and put it on the back burner until after Survivor Series? Or maybe something real crazy theory here, maybe they could actually beat the New Day for the Tag Team Championships and go on to face the Street Profits at Survivor Series. That I think that'd be kind of a cool possibility. Backstage, Nikki Cross confronts Alexa Bliss and wants to know what happened to her best friend, and her back is to Nikki the whole time. She finally turns Alexa around and she's spooked, and Alexa's got those creepy contacts back in her eyes. Back in the ring, Ricochet takes on Tucker, who now has a brand new look. He's wearing kind of Tommy Dreamer pants and he has no shirt and his whole body is covered in baby oil. That is a curious look for Tucker here. As the match begins, Mustafa Ali of Retribution shows up and kind of paces the ring, stands at the announce table. The match is over before it begins. Recoil, and then Ricochet wins. Poor Tucky. Nice heel turn there. After the match, Retribution get in the ring and they beat up Ricochet and Tucker. And Mustafa Ali says to Ricochet, you know, no sin is forgiven until it is punished. They lay him out, and that's where it ends. So what does that mean? What Mustafa Ali said, where is this going to go with Ricochet? I feel this segment would have been a lot more impactful if Retribution were booked a bit better in the last several weeks. Backstage on his way to the ring, Drew McIntyre is stopped by his old pal Sheamus. They reminisce on their old times teaming together, and then Sheamus offers Drew the final spot in the Survivor Series team, but Drew does not accept yet because he's too focused on the championship picture right now. So then, after that very wholesome conversation, it's time for our main event as Drew takes on The Miz and Morrison in a handicap match. And Drew's just beating the piss out of these two guys for the most of the match here. There is a bit of back and forth, like after the commercial break. Really cool spot where Drew in the Tree of Woe sits up into it, hits a German on Morrison off the top, and he takes a bump for it like only Morrison can. Miz hits the skull-crushing finale on Drew, but there's a 2 count, and finally Drew hits the Claymore to win. I mean, was there really any doubt as to who was going to win this thing? You know, and also the point's been made about how Money in the Bank holders generally lose a lot before they ultimately cash in because it's supposed to help add to the surprise, but it does not make it any easier to watch. After the match, Orton comes in, hits the RKO on Drew out of nowhere. He stands tall. We hear the Fiend's laughter as we cut to black. So the end of the show is pretty much the same how it begins. You know, it's kind of that bookend of championship picture. Orton's there. He's got all these different challenges, a wide range of challengers here as we end the show. And I think that's actually pretty good, and I'll explain why in a second. My grade for Raw this week is a C+. I do think they're doing a pretty good job straddling that line, like promoting not just the Raw-centric storylines that aren't going to make Survivor Series, but also promoting the matches they will have at the pay-per-view and the inter-brand conflict for that. I think besides that, though, the show didn't do too much to wow me. I will say I do like how the WWE title is being portrayed right now. I don't think Drew McIntyre, when he was champion, ever had like multiple opponents at the same time. I'm pretty sure it was just like one person at any any given point. But right now, Orton's dealing with three different, competitors with three very different arcs happening kind of concurrently with each other. There is a clear distinction and a clear hierarchy of which of those arcs between Drew, The Fiend, and Miz and Morrison is more important, and it's not The Miz and Morrison, but I do like the fact that they have all these different things happening because it adds a lot more importance to the championship, I feel. I think a good way to build credibility for any title is to have like multiple opponents gunning for it at one time, whether it's the main championship or a mid-card title. I do find it kind of boring and repetitive when you've got like one-on-one programs all the time. And like right now, out the gate, Orton's reign is very interesting for that reason. But what did you think about Raw this week? And hey, what do you think about this sweet mustache of mine? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.